Hi guys, thanks for joining me once again for another round of Saturday Stories. I've got 5 stories for you today. Before I read out the stories, I just want to say a big thank you to the guys who continue to send in stories. Without your stories, I wouldn't really have much of a channel. So a big thank you guys, keep them coming. I'm always in need of brand new stories, and they don't have to come from Thailand. They can come from anywhere really, as long as they're the kind of stories that you hear on this channel. All right, so let's jump straight into story number 1 today. It's going to be a bit of a marathon once again.
สวัสดีค่ะ
I have been a regular visitor to the Land of Smiles for the past 9 years, except in 2020 for obvious mass reasons. I'm writing the story about my first visit to Thailand back in 2015. A little background about me. I'm an Arabic person who lived all his life in the Middle East, with an extremely shy personality at that time, at least. I had been divorced 5 years by then and was drowning in depression, just sticking my nose into work so I wouldn't think about anything else. By that time, I had accumulated a large amount of paid leave days and I had to take them. A friend of mine had just visited Thailand for the second time and shared all sorts of stories with me. So I decided to use these leave days and go on a 2-week trip. I didn't know where to go or what to do. My friend gave me some insights about Patong and Pattaya in terms of fun things to do, but no advice about where to stay or anything about Bangkok. He mentioned the MBK Centre, so I jumped on a hotel booking website and tried to find a non-expensive 3 or 4 star hotel in Bangkok, Phuket and Pattaya. I got that sorted out and here I am on the plane to Bangkok. It was the end of July and coming from the Middle East, I liked the weather. I jumped into a taxi to my hotel in Bangkok, which was around Siam Square. I arrived at the hotel, which I figured was a 2-story building in a small soi next to a school, so a guaranteed wake-up alarm as early as they started the morning activities. It wasn't the best hotel in town, but yeah, I paid 1,000 baht for 2 nights, so no complaints. After settling in and freshening up after the trip, I went out to discover the area. As soon as I walked out of the small soi, there was a 7-Eleven right at the corner. I got myself a SIM card and I thought I could find my street with a 7-Eleven as a marker. After walking a few blocks, I figured out that I had walked past a dozen 7-Elevens so far and I knew I was already lost. I took a tuk-tuk to a place on Sukhumvit Soi 31 to enjoy what Bangkok had to offer, then went on wandering around the area. Accidentally, I found an Arabic food place hidden there. I had my first meal of the day. It was already 7 or 8 p.m. and my phone had already died by now. Now I needed to figure out how to get back to the hotel. After several tries with different taxi drivers, I finally found one who spoke English okay. While searching in my wallet, I found that I had printed out my booking confirmation. I handed it to him, he called the hotel and got directions. The earlier trip with the tuk-tuk cost me around 400 baht. The drive back with the taxi driver who turned on the meter cost me 70 baht. I spent the next day wandering around, then I travelled to Phuket. In Phuket, I hired a tour guide who took me to a lot of sightseeing spots in the daytime and I had the rest of the day to enjoy what Patong had to offer. On my 3rd day, the tour took longer as it was the last booked day and I didn't want to extend it. The tour lady insisted on finishing the schedule, so we arrived back at my hotel at around 7 p.m. I was so exhausted and didn't have the strength to go find something to eat on Second Road, as I often do, so I decided to order some rice and shrimp from the hotel restaurant. 30 minutes later, the food was delivered to my room, and the moment I finished eating, I started shaking and had a strange feeling of cold, although the AC was turned off. I thought it could be because of the long day and an hour of sleeping would help, so I slept for a couple of hours only to wake up in a pool of my own sweat. I still felt cold and warm at the same time, if that makes sense. The room was a non-smoking room and I used to smoke at that time, so I made myself a cup of tea and went downstairs to have a smoke with the tea. It was almost 1 a.m. by this time. I took a few sips of the tea and I immediately started to vomit. It was food poisoning, for sure. While in that state, a young lady who worked at the spa nearby was walking back home. She had seen me a couple of times in the spa, so she recognised me. She ran to me asking what was wrong. I replied, "You can see what's wrong all over the pavement." She asked where my room was. I pointed it out. She walked to my room and asked me to wait for a while. She went out for 15 or 20 minutes, then came back with some medicine, milk, and a snack from 7-Eleven. She gave me the medicine and insisted that I eat the snack and drink the milk. She waited with me until 7 o'clock in the morning, asked me to shower to make sure that I wasn't dizzy and I wouldn't fall in the bathroom, then left to open the shop as she had cleaning duty that morning. I offered her money and she refused. I told her at least to cover the cost of the medicine and the stuff from 7-Eleven. She refused again. Until today, we are still in contact. She left Patong back in her town where she helps her mum in a small shop she owns. She never asked me for money, no sick buffalo or brother having an accident. She hooked me to Thailand with her kindness and goodness. I've seen the darker side of Thailand on other trips of mine, but these are stories for another day. Even so, whenever I think of Thailand, I think of that lovely smile and kindness of that caring girl that night. It's really strange, you know, because a lot of bar girls and go-go dancers, girls who work in massage shops, they can be really ruthless when it comes to extracting money out of guys. You can understand why, you know, most of them come from very poor rural areas. But what I've found over the years is they also have a very, very kind side to them. When they see somebody's down on their luck, they tend to want to help. I can tell you just a little story that I witnessed myself years ago. I'm talking 20 years ago. I had a friend I used to go out with to Pattaya at the weekend sometimes. And one night we were going back to the hotel. He had a girl with him. I was by myself. And you know the little steps that come out the back of the BART bus? So it was quite busy. And I'd got on the bus and the driver must have thought that was everybody on. But the girl had got in as well. I got in, the girl got in, and my friend had one foot on the step of the BART bus, and it took off. It started driving away, and he fell off and basically fell on the road and injured himself. Not real badly, but it took some skin off his knees and gave him a bit of a shock. And this bar girl took him up to the Bangkok hospital and spent a good few hours with him, and then went back to his room afterwards. So that they do have a very, very kind side to them. You know, I mean, people say a lot of bad things about bar girls, and most of them are true, but not all of them. All right, let's jump into story number 2. I just returned from Thailand after spending 9 days in Bangkok, Phuket, and a short trip to Pattaya. It was a boys-only trip as I travelled alone to meet a friend who lives in Thailand, and a friend from Australia joined us. In a nutshell, this was the best trip of my life as I had a blast with non-stop partying, drinking, dancing, meeting the beautiful Thai ladies and visiting amazing places across Thailand. These memories will stay with me forever. Before I start, I'll give you a quick background on myself. I am a 37-year-old male with mixed Middle East and South Asian. I have been living in Melbourne, Australia for over a decade. My first visit to Thailand was in 2014 with my ex-wife, who was the worst travel companion ever, and I didn't get the chance to experience what Thailand had to offer. Fast forward to 2021, my marriage came to an end as our relationship fell apart with virtually no aerobics, lots of arguments, and I eventually found out that my ex-wife was cheating on me. Anyway, despite being an expensive divorce, it was good riddance and I felt like I'd bought my life back. I started hitting the gym regular and I'm currently in the best shape of my life. I look like I'm in my early 30s and I have retained my confidence as opposed to the dark cloud that followed me around being unhappily married. In 2023, I was drinking with a friend, a widower, same age as me, and on a drunken state, we unexpectedly planned to visit either Thailand or Bali for a short trip during the end of the year to blow off some steam. Particularly after a hectic year at work, we eventually decided that Thailand would be a more appropriate destination due to its amazing nightlife. I decided to travel a few days earlier than my friend in Australia so that I could have some time to myself and also catch up with another friend who lives in Bangkok. With that, I'll begin my story. I have been chatting to a few girls on Thai Friendly in the weeks leading up to the trip to Thailand to get my feet wet, as they say. Before jumping into the water, I came across some amazingly beautiful girls, but at the age group and location I've been looking for, most girls I met on Thai Friendly turned out to be freelancers. But I did meet a 25-year-old beautiful Thai girl who I found was working in a jewellery shop in Bangkok and seemed like a decent girl, next door type. Her name was Mai. Mai was looking for friends, Thai Friendly, which is also what I was looking for, so we started chatting, sharing photos and occasionally flirting. We finally decided we would meet for a dinner and drinks on the day after my arrival in Thailand. I arrived in Bangkok on Christmas Day, but unfortunately with a bad cold and a sore throat. By the time I arrived at my hotel in Sukhumvit 11, I felt like I was running a fever. What a way to start the trip. Now, prior to arriving, May texted me a couple of times asking to meet for some drinks on the same evening I arrived. She told me she brought a red dress and was out celebrating Christmas. However, I was in no shape to come out that evening without looking and feeling terribly sick. So I apologised to May and said I'll meet her at the dinner scheduled next day. The next day arrived and, overloaded on cold medicines and paracetamols which eventually worked, by the afternoon I was feeling much better and caught up with my friend in Thailand and travelled around using the BTS day pass and also got an amazing Thai oil massage. I also managed to go to the hotel gym to pump my muscles, a common ritual I do before a date. I have been texting May a few times throughout the day but found she wasn't being very responsive. This was not uncommon, as I know she can be busy during the day due to her work attending customers at the shop. As it got closer to the dinner reservation time, I started to get nervous as she stopped responding altogether. So I text her, "I guess you're not coming." A little later, she texts with 2 words, "I'm sorry." Are you serious? I was really pissed off with that response, but kept my cool and decided not to respond back to her. I decided to go out for the dinner anyway and have some fun by myself. I mean, this is Bangkok, right? While having dinner, I planned to go to a British pub near Nana Plaza to watch a soccer game. On a side note, I'm a huge soccer fan and I've been supporting Liverpool FC for 20 odd years. I've never been to Soi 4 before, so when I entered the street, my mind was blown away. The lights, the music, the crowd, the women, it was sensory overload to say the least. When I entered the British pub, it felt a bit underwhelming compared to the other establishments, so I decided to go to another bar where there were more people and TV screens. So I stumbled into a bar near the entrance to Nana Plaza, which seemed like a happening place with lots of girls, live music and pool table and TV screens showing soccer games. The moment I entered this bar, a petite, decent-looking lady approached me and got me seated at a table and took my drink orders. She looked like in her mid-30s, quite a decent face, fair skin with a decent body, except a little belly fat. She wanted to take me to a corner seat facing the road, as she said the view is better there. But I said I want to sit near a TV screen so that I can watch the game. While she was grabbing me a beer, there was another girl who came to me and grabbed my arm and danced while rubbing against my body. Although this was my first encounter with bar girls, I have watched enough videos on YouTube channels and sort of expected things like this would happen anyway. I told her that I've already asked a lady to get me a drink, but I wasn't sure she understood as she kept on dancing with me to the live band music. The girl who took my drink order returned and told something to the other girl in Thai, to which she made a sad face and went away. So then I started chatting to my hostess. She said her name is Pam and she has been working for 5 years in this bar. She had very basic conversational English with a very thick Thai accent. She said she's from Isan. Eventually the question came about ladies' drinks, to which I said, of course, grab yourself a drink. She said she likes live music, so we kept drinking and we occasionally danced together. After a while, another girl approached us who seemed a bit old and not as pretty compared to the other girls. She kept praising Pam, saying she's beautiful and sexy and I've hit the jackpot with her. Then she kept calling me handsome man and getting very touchy with me. Pam told me I should get her a lady's drink. After a while, I reluctantly bought the older lady a drink just to get rid of her. I played a round of pool with a Thai man while sipping my drink. I could see Pam on and off on her phone, and her phone wallpaper had a photo of a young boy who I guessed was her son. I watched the game and celebrated with other Liverpool supporters in the bar as my team won. Up until now, Pam had told me a few times that I could bar fine her for 600 baht and she could visit my hotel for 4,000 baht for an overnight stay. I was enjoying Pam's company and asked her if she could go to my hotel for 3,000 baht. She said she could do that, but only short time for that, which was okay with me. So I bar fined her, but I told her that I'd like to check out some other bars with nice music and a dance floor. So she took me to a nearby bar on Soi 4, which had an incredible live music band playing all the popular songs I grew up with listening, and was packed with Thai girls and foreigners. I had an awesome time there with Pam while singing, dancing and drinking some more. Eventually the bar closed and we've decided we've had enough. She grabbed a tuk-tuk for us and we returned to my hotel. Once in my room, she undressed and cleaned up in the shower. I thought we're getting ready for some aerobics here, but this is when things started going south. She told me to put the 3,000 baht on the bedside table just to show that I have the cash. I felt this was a bit weird, a weird thing to ask. I mean, I've been paying for all the drinks, bar fine, etc. all night, so why would she assume I wouldn't have the money? Anyway, I did what she asked, but before we started the aerobics, I wanted to wash up as well, so I went to the bathroom to take a quick shower. After I returned, I saw that the cash was gone from the bedside table and she was falling asleep. I tried to initiate aerobics, but felt like she is absolutely not into it and kept pretending to fall asleep. This completely ruined my mood and all the scam stories flashed in front of my eyes. I knew she would just leave with the cash if I fall asleep now. So I asked her to put the money back on the table and she can have it once we do what we agreed to do. After I said this, I could literally feel her mood change. Pam kept arguing and didn't want to take the cash out of her bag. I was very calm but adamant with her, saying that I will give her the cash after we do what's agreed. After a while, she took the cash out and left it on the table. I immediately took the cash and kept it in my pocket. She looked really surprised and angry, but I assured her again that the cash is hers as long as we have the agreed short time. But inside I was completely turned off by her attitude. She then got up and started to get dressed and told me to pay her 2,000 baht right now, otherwise she'll call the police. Although a little drunk, I tried to compose myself. Paying the money wasn't the big issue for me, but I really didn't want to concede to this woman. I thought of my options and I offered her 1,000 baht just to leave my room. But she kept saying I saw her naked and touched her, which was enough for me to pay her the money. I thought she must be joking, but I didn't show any emotions and I didn't move from my decision. I told her I'm going to return to her bar next day and complain about her. She didn't seem to be affected by that. She took her phone out and called the police line, said something in Thai and gave me the phone. A woman spoke to me in Thai, and when I responded in English, she transferred me to an English-speaking operator. I explained the situation clearly, after which she hung up. We waited in the room for a few minutes, during which time Pam kept threatening me that the police would arrest me, ruin my holiday, blah blah blah. I kept my cool and stayed quiet. She called the police again and gave the address of my hotel, but the rest of the conversation was in Thai, so I didn't understand whether they really are coming or not. Pam packed her stuff and told me to come down to the reception with her as the police are nearby. I had a hunch that she is bluffing, so I walked behind her to the door, and the moment she stepped out, I closed the door behind her. She kept shouting and knocking the door for a bit and then left. I immediately called the reception, explained what had happened and that a call had been made to the police. The lady at the reception was very helpful. She first asked me whether the girl stole any money from me or not. The money was in my pocket, so I answered no. Then she assured me she would talk to Pam and take care of this issue. I stayed up for a while, anticipating a call from the reception saying the police had arrived, but nothing further happened that night. I went to sleep much relieved, thinking that I've dodged a bullet. Not the best start to nightlife in Thailand, but a lesson learnt. The next night with a different girl was amazing and complete opposite to this night. Well, I can tell you straight off the back, she's absolutely bluffing. You know, prostitution in Thailand is absolutely illegal, isn't it? So how can she go to the police and say, I've just gone back to a hotel room with a guy, I was going to charge him some money and he hasn't paid or something like that? She'd be the one to get arrested. I suspect what happened, they've got friends in the bars, and I suspect what happened is she probably called her girlfriend, was bluffing. That's why they were speaking in Thai. And, you know, some guys come here for the first time and just the threat of the police arresting them would be enough to get them to hand over the money. You know, they don't want to end up in jail. So I absolutely, near as 100%, I think it was a bluff, and hence the police never turned up. So that pretty much confirms it. Right, into story number 3. I am 38, from Australia, and I work nights on a tech support help desk from home, so my lifestyle is very relaxed. I was set to have my first international solo trip to Thailand in June 2020. I had to cancel this trip due to work demands. I began living a virtual Thai life on YouTube, watching vloggers go around Thailand to all the places I wanted to go to, and promised myself that I would get to Thailand soon. During my time on YouTube, I found the live streams from Pattaya, in particular streams from Soy 6. I proceeded to buy the girls drinks and started a regular interaction with one particular girl. After about 3 days of buying drinks regularly and flirtation, teasing on the stream chat, she found me on Facebook and added me. When she finished working the bar at 2 a.m, she would text me. This went on for 2 or 3 days before we had our first phone call. We then started a regular relationship, calling each other boyfriend-girlfriend. Her nickname is Ploy. She told me that she started working in the bar in March 2019. I knew what she did, and I knew that if customers came into the bar, she would possibly go with them. Luckily though, this being low season, the bar was always very empty, and even to the point of them conducting live streams. Ploy told me that her first boyfriend was a Thai guy who she was with for 2 years. He had cheated on her the whole time. She said she hated cheating and would be honest to me always, and this included telling me anytime she went with a customer. Not in detail, but just mentioning it. As we got closer and closer, she said she would not go with customers anymore and would only make money from drinks. She said she didn't feel right being with other men and having such strong feelings for me. She even put up a Facebook post how she was now in love with me. Also, I could actually see most of the time she was in the bar on the stream and how long she spent with each customer having drinks. Because I work from home and I don't have much of a social life, I was able to have very long calls with her, 8 to 15 hours. We spoke every night, keeping the video calls going while we both had showers. Also, we even set the phones up beside our bed so we could sleep together. We did have a few fights when I asked her about leaving the bar. Also, when I asked her about being with customers and if there was any chance she would stop if the right man was in her life. Like many bar girls in your stories, the only reason she worked in the bar is she's looking after her family. After a lot of chatting and expressing how we feel for each other, she agreed to leave the bar and go back to her family, and she will go back to school. I agreed to support her with 4,000 baht a week. When she got back home, she told me the school was closed at the moment. Also, she found out that her mother was 5 to 6 months pregnant from her Thai boyfriend, which her mother had not told her about prior to getting home. While she was home for a few weeks, it was amazing. We could chat a lot and she was never drunk. But because there was nothing for her to do, she did seem to get bored and was not her normal happy self. She would also spend a lot of her days playing poker with some older men and her mother about a 10-minute bike ride from the farm. Luckily enough, she was good and would not lose that often, and only 30 to 40 baht each day. She was very jealous of me in regards to friends I had on Facebook, and that I was still in touch and good friends with my ex, whom I broke up with 5 years earlier, and she lives in South Africa. Ploy got so jealous at one stage that she refused to take my call and blocked me on Facebook for a day. I was so upset she then unblocked me, but she was very distant without her telling me why. I could tell that she had a lot of pressure from her mother, most probably telling her to go back to the bar and bring in more money for the family than what I could provide to her. I told her I would increase the amount of money I'll send her to 5,000 baht per week, but that would be the maximum I could manage. But if I support her with the 5,000 baht a week or 20,000 baht a month, I won't be able to come over to visit as soon as I would like to because I won't be saving as much money. Long story short, we broke up in February this year. She went back to the bar a week later. We still have a little bit of contact, but I said I cannot be your boyfriend if you are still working in the bar, and it's very difficult to have a long distance relationship. My emotions could not handle her going off with customers. Even just guys touching her makes me angry. She said if we are together, she will never go with customers, and I am the first man she would give the bar up for. She still puts posts up on her Facebook that say she misses me and she is very upset, although there are so many horror stories of Western guys and bar girls that go on. I feel with the amount of contact we have had, I believe what she tells me. I guess time will tell in the future. I told her I'm looking to take my tech support job and move to Thailand in the next 8 to 12 months if my employer allows me to do so, as all I need to do is log in on a laptop through a VPN. I said that when I do, we will definitely meet up. I guess if I live in Thailand, who knows what is possible. So this is quite an old story. This is a story I actually read out about 4 years ago. And at the time, the guy had never been to Thailand. He was very, very naive. And I've since had contact with him. He's been to Thailand a couple of times. He now realises it wasn't his fault. He just didn't know, he didn't know anything much about Thailand. And I basically explained, of all the places in the world, a bar in Soi 6 in Pattaya. I mean, it doesn't get any worse than that, does it? But he didn't lose too much, and he comes here now and he enjoys himself, and he's got his Thailand stripes, as it were, and he doesn't fall for such stories anymore. So good luck to the guy. Right, we've got 2 more stories, but they're both very, very short, so let's get into them. This is somewhat an unusual story relating to my last visit to Thailand, which took place in December 1982, January 83. I spent about 8 weeks travelling in Thailand, which was probably quite a different experience to the present day. On the day prior to my return back to the UK, I had some unspent money left over, and like many other travellers, my intention was to return later that year in December. With that in mind, I opened an account at the Bangkok Bank Sukhumvit Road branch and was allocated an account number and given a passbook. The deposit was for an amount of 20,000 baht. These were the days before debit cards, of course, so this was 38 plus years ago, but time being a jet plane and moving too fast, I never went back to Thailand that year or ever again. At some time in the 1980s, I went to the London branch of the Bangkok Bank and was informed that as the account was in Bangkok, I would have to deal with that branch only. About 15 years ago, a friend from New Zealand visited the Sukhumvit Road branch to inquire on my behalf and was told that the account still existed. Unfortunately, due to a decluttering exercise a few years ago, I cannot find the passbook. I still have the account number somewhere. I must emphasise that no further transactions, deposits or withdrawals were ever made on the account. I admit to letting the situation slide, my fault entirely. Agreed, it's obviously not a large amount of money, but nevertheless it is my money, or that's the way I see it. Can you offer any suggestions or advice as to the possible retrieval of this money, or would you see it as written off? It is a difficult one. Personally speaking, I'd write it off. Banks are a bit funny in Thailand here. You get charged for things you don't get charged for in the Western world. For example, I've got 2 bank accounts here. One of them I opened up in Pattaya, and if I withdraw using the ATM card anywhere in Bangkok, I get charged 20 baht a transaction, because although it's the same bank, my branch is in Pattaya and I'm in Bangkok, so it doesn't matter. Every time I take money out of the ATM, then I'll get a 20 baht charge. So that's why another reason why I opened a local Kasikorn bank, because I don't get charged now. But no, I mean, what you'd have to do to get your money back, you would have to have that passbook. You'd have to walk into the branch where you open the account with your passport, and then you'd possibly get your money back. You'd probably get your money back, but other than that, no, I'd write it off. Okay, so let's go into our next story, and I'm pretty sure this is the last one. I have a story for you which is a bit different. My name is Shane. I'm a 34 from Australia. 2 of my friends took a short trip to Thailand in 2011 and asked if I wanted to join them. I wasn't interested in travelling at the time, so I said no. Once they got back, they told me stories of Bangkok, Phuket, Koh Samui and how amazing and carefree it was compared to Australia. The following year, they booked another 2-week holiday to Thailand and asked if I wanted to go. I had just broken up with my girlfriend, so thought, why not? What have I got to lose? And it might cheer me up. We arrived in Phuket. There were 6 of us all together. We stayed at the Patong Beach Hotel for 2 weeks. We arrived in the evening, and on the first night the guys went out, but I stayed in the hotel room as I had a slip disc injury to my lower back, which had flared up really badly the day before we left Sydney. So from the 9-hour flight and an hour drive from Phuket Airport to Patong Beach, I was in so much pain I couldn't stand or walk without pain, so just stayed in the room and went to bed. The following morning I went to the nearest pharmacy and got some painkillers. The best thing was that the painkillers they gave me were double strength to the prescription ones you get back home, and even better still, I could simply buy them over the counter at a fraction of the cost. I thought the holiday has already started as a win. With the pain mask, we went out to discover Phuket, and I was amazed at the differences from back home. The first night we started at Bangla Road and drank our way through the street. This was the case for the next 2 weeks, and I loved every night of it. I experienced the girl scene also, which I had heard about, but I didn't take any notice of it since I knew it was all fake and they just wanted my money. Anyway, the point of the story is what happened on the last night before I went back home to Sydney. Every night out, the 6 of us would go our separate ways and do what we felt like, but on the final night, we all had dinner together at what looked like a nice hotel restaurant. I thought it was the last night, so I'll have some of the lobster that I saw when I was walking in. I ordered the lobster and I ate it, and I didn't think anything of it. After dinner, we went out to Bangla Road for one last night of partying. 30 minutes after dinner, I felt something was funny and ran back to the hotel, where I spent the rest of the night and morning with the worst food poisoning I'd ever experienced, and it continued the whole flight back to Sydney, where I spent the majority of the 9 hours in the aircraft bathroom. The moral of the story: don't eat the lobster that's on display to pull you in. In saying that, I've travelled all over the world, and Thailand is still my favourite place, and I've been back 3 times since, and I can't wait to go back once again. So I was a little bit surprised when I read this story, because normally if you go into a seafood restaurant, the lobster, they have them in tanks with the water bubbling and stuff. So you get these big sea bass, lobsters, prawns, and they're all in their separate tanks, real big tanks, some of them. And what they normally do, they're alive, and then they take them out and kill them and cook them, so they're really, really fresh. But to have one on display and then to cook it, I can't really see that. I mean, it must have happened because it happened to him and he got sick, but it's not usual. But I would agree. I mean, if you're going to eat seafood, go to a place where the seafood is actually still alive in the water, not displayed on ice. Because it's a very, very hot country. Flies land on things and carry diseases and things like that. I've got a rule for myself when I go out to restaurants. If I go to, say, Patty, which is very busy, and a restaurant is empty, I won't go in there because the food isn't turning over. So whatever they're selling is being allowed to sit, and you don't know if it's refrigerated or what's happening. So if a restaurant's packed, yeah, you have to wait longer. But I like that because I know the food's turning over and it's fresh. Most of the time anyway. That's just a quirky thing that I do. Okay, guys, thanks very much for listening once again. Keep them stories rolling in, as I say. And you too can have your story read out here, right here on Thailand Bound. But for this Saturday, thank you very much for listening. And I'll catch you very, very soon. Thanks, guys.